My mom wasted thousands of dollars on my pampered sister's wedding, all because I froze her account. I'm dealing with an unusual issue in my life. No, it's not an issue. Rather, I find myself in a predicament. My sister and mom have been taking advantage of me for a long time, and they've finally gone to the extreme. While I'm sick of caving into their demands, I also don't want to cut them off since it would force them into poverty, which is unfair. Living in Ohio for the past 6 years after being married, I am 38 years old, married, and a mother of 2. I was born and raised in Houston. My parents' divorce was a trying time in my life since my dad abandoned us after accusing my mom of being unfaithful. Mom never remarried, so it's still unclear if it was true or simply an accusation. My parents divorced when my sister and I were 10 and 5 years old, respectively. Rumor has it that my parents' divorce was precipitated by my father's suspicion that my sister was not honest. He moved out and allowed mom to keep the house as alimony. I was the only one whose education my father covered. My sister was not. Why her mom never fought for child support is a mystery to me, but he never paid it. I suppose that's why everyone bought my dad's claim that my sister wasn't really his daughter. While I was a kid, my dad hardly spoke to us. He would drop by my elementary school sometimes to pay the tuition and bring me a few gifts, but I didn't start communicating with him until I was a senior in high school. Ever since then, he has been an integral part of my life. Even though my mom was quite against it, he still made it to my wedding. My relationship with my dad has always been stronger than my mom's. Even though this didn't endure, he was eventually diagnosed with a fatal condition, and we lost him last year. He even made 2 visits to Ohio after The fact that my father had me listed as his successor only served to infuriate my mother, who had already grown distant from me. Due to my closeness with my father, he remarried after a long separation from his mother, but he was unable to start a family with his second wife. It goes without saying that my mom and sister didn't approve of me since my dad adored me, and I was the beneficiary of his $400,000 trust money. He used to claim that he had only one daughter, and that was me. This inheritance wasn't the only thing at stake. I had a better life than my sister since my dad paid for my education from the time I was a kid. I went to a better school, went to a better college, and had more opportunities overall. You know, I was 10 years old when they separated, and by that point, payments for my schooling and child support had begun to roll in. My mother didn't have much say since I was 12 years old. Funds for the school and the university were received immediately. My mom did buy my sister certain things and utilize some of the child support money for home expenses. My mom kept me entertained so I wouldn't whine to everyone, since I wasn't exactly a dim-witted child. While I won't accuse my mom and sister of being cruel to me, I will say that they were rather close and didn't like me at all while I was growing up. And anyhow, I was a genius. Brilliant from a young age, and not just in the classroom. It would be inappropriate to treat this person like a doormat or ignore them. I believe that was another factor that prevented my mother from ever mistreating me. The issue I am currently facing is the $400,000 that my father left me. As soon as my parents and sister found out, they have been constantly hounding me for loans. By the way, you have to know that they have actually approached me financially before. I have been of service to them ever since I began working. They had more money to spend as my income increased. They are relatives, and I assist them out since they aren't well off, even though I have no obligation to do so. My mom is a grocery cashier, and my sister is a boutique salesperson. Their combined income is less than half of mine, so I feel obligated to provide them a hand. They have never been cruel or nasty to me, even if we aren't really close. Please don't misunderstand my emotions. I really hope you all comprehend it. A few months back, my mom gave me a call to let me know that she was planning to remodel our home. Over the years, damage has occurred to the walls, ceilings, and floor. The walls and ceilings are cracking at the corners, and the wiring has never been fixed since Dad moved out. The house has also never been painted. There was never enough money to keep the house in good repair. According to her, they were finding it more and more challenging to remain in that house. It feels like the home is about to fall apart during the thunderstorm or rain. She went to the bank to get a loan, but the interest rate is too much. What she was implying was very clear to me. So that I could fix up the house, she asked me to take out a loan. I had a good idea of what she wanted, but we avoided discussing it during our unpleasant talk. I began to disregard her calls after that discussion. She seldom calls. At most, we talk once a month. Last month, though, she phoned me 3 or 4 times. After much waiting, I returned her phone and learned that the house was literally falling apart during heavy weather, making it hazardous to live in. She requested the money from me this time with more candor. In installments, she said she would return to me. I inquired as to the amount of money she had anticipated. She informed me that it would be $100,000. My sanity crumbled. My previous statement was that I do not have that much capital available to lend. She dropped hints about the inherited funds. Despite my wrath, I refrained from continuing the discussion over the trust fund funds. The most I can offer is $50,000, as I mentioned before. That was her agreement. In hindsight, I should not have let my guard down and offered $50,000. After telling her, I felt obligated to lend her the money, even though I could have chosen to ignore it. It didn't sit well with me to lend such a large sum of money. My spouse proposed that I make the loan in installments and check in on the house's development before approving further payments. The idea of sending $50,000 in installments was broached with my mom. My Houston account was inactive. I granted my mom access to the account after activating it and transferring $10,000 to it. The reason I didn't just wire the funds to her account was something she wanted to know. I offered a weak justification for that. My hubby actually came up with this concept. Let's find out how effective this is. Hopelessly pessimistic, yet holding out hope that she will repay the money nevertheless. First update. I still have no idea how my parents and sister tried to con me out of some simple cash. 2 months have passed since I first loaned my parents the money for the home improvement. I have donated $20,000 up to this point, and I will not be giving anything more. I was aware that their main motivation was financial gain from me, but I never thought they would deceive me to such an extreme degree. It wouldn't have been so bad if they had just been honest with me. My sister is getting married, and I just found out about it. Someone I went to school with, rather than my immediate family. My sister has been in contact with the wedding planning organization run by my schoolmate's husband in order to arrange her elaborate nuptials. The wedding-to-be, that is what it is called. My sister probably had no idea that I'm pals with them. Having a wedding that costs $50,000 is definitely a big deal. The news of your sister's wedding getting out to other people stings. Disregard the invitation. I had no idea it was coming. According to my assistant, there were over 100 guests, despite my assumption that it would be a small, personal gathering. My inability to even reach that 100 was devastating. I was more concerned about the money than I was about feeling sorry about it. Where did she acquire the means to plan a wedding of this magnitude? Indulge in limitless cuisine and beverages at one of the town's finest venues adorned with exquisite flowers and decor. My mom's so-called restoration work was going into an empty bank account, so I went ahead and verified it. The bank account has no funds. I wanted to know if the renovations had begun, so I gave my mom a call. Yes, she said, and the renovation business was contracted. Nevertheless, the work has not yet begun. Lust was unable to tolerate her deceit. I was horrified to think that they were spending a small fortune on her wedding while simultaneously using my money for the house renovations. Up until that point, I had no idea whether they were really using my money for her wedding. I considered taking a plane to Houston to see what was happening firsthand, but ultimately decided it wasn't worth it. My aunt was only a few blocks away from my mom's place, so I contacted her. She was my dad's sister. Inquiring about my sister's upcoming nuptials, I sought her opinion. She responded affirmatively, despite not having been invited. I can see why my mom might feel this way about my dad's relatives. I was informed that my sister's wedding had gotten everyone in the neighborhood talking. I mean, up until a few years ago, their house was in utter disrepair due to a lack of upkeep. They both worked tirelessly to provide for their family, and now they're getting married and have a beautiful new house. As soon as I heard this, I felt lightheaded and confused. According to Mom, the house still needed repairs, but according to Aunt, it looked brand new after getting new paint. Then it hit me. My mom had begged me for $20,000 for a knee transplant around 6 months ago. Inquiring about the specifics of the knee transplant facility, I contacted my mom via phone. I fibbed about The orthopedics information being needed for my friend's father's knee surgery. She mumbled something about forgetting the name. She had a hard time describing the clinic or hospital when I asked for their contact information. She hadn't anticipated it. Just like that, she hung up and said something about a network problem. My second attempt to reach her was unsuccessful since her phone had been off for some time and had gone unanswered. A number of days passed after I sent her a text message, during which time she did not respond. Her deceit was obvious to me. My sister's dream wedding is going to be funded by the money she is taking for the house renovation, not the transplant, which is why my donation for the transplant was entirely gone. In addition, they informed me that my sister's engagement party was held on my front yard, complete with an abundance of flowers and wine. It was as if I had been living under a rock. I had no idea they were living large while acting like such Scrooges to get money out of me. Following that, I proceeded to ghost them. The funds in the account were no longer dispersed. I was unresponsive when my mom tried to reach me. She texted me, but I ignored her. My long-lost sister finally phoned me, but I still have no idea why she tried. I've had enough of their manipulation and deceit. From now on, I will not tolerate them. Neither my higher income nor the fact that my father bequeathed all of my possessions to me rather than to them matters. That doesn't give them carte blanche to take advantage of me with their deceitful strategies. My mom's princess is having her special day spoiled by me. Second update. My mom was right. Their attempts at reaching out to me were unsuccessful, so my mom contacted my spouse. My hubby is quite the spoilsport, I must say. He still answered my mom's phone even though I warned him not to answer any of their texts or calls. She broke out in tears and said I had abandoned them. They were in the middle of the restoration project and needed the money, but I had reneged on my pledge. The truth came out of my husband's mouth. Yes. Indeed, he accomplished that. I wanted to give him a good thrashing. He informed her that I had broken ties with her because I knew the truth. That she had been using me for the money, and that it was truly going toward my sister's wedding. My frustration level was over the roof, and I intended to punish them for enduring this deceit, but my husband spoiled my plans. On top of that, he let her know that we were aware she had lied about getting a knee transplant and had instead utilized the funds for home repairs. My mother apologized to me again after that call. A misunderstanding, she claimed. She had borrowed the money for the house repair from someone, and now she was paying it back with the money I gave her. Once again, it was all bullshit. I finally told her I would talk to her after all her texts and calls, but only if she agreed to be honest. Okay, she agreed. She spilled the beans when I phoned her. She informed me that my sister had planned a lavish wedding, but they were short on funds and had chosen to approach me for a loan. Using the justification of the home improvement project, my sister plotted to steal the funds from me. Since I haven't been to Houston in a long time and don't keep in touch with locals, they figured I wouldn't notice that the property had been remodeled. She asked me for wedding money straight from me, and I demanded to know why she lied. My sister, she replied, would never want that. She expressed her reluctance to explicitly ask me for a favor. Holy cow. Look at it. I mentioned that I am aware that she used the funds from the knee transplant that I donated to fix the house. She grew quiet. I justified my lack of secrecy by saying that I was fully aware of the truth. In her panic, she contacted me, saying that the doctor had ordered an immediate knee transplant. And I wired the money within hours. She said that the house was collapsing and that my sisters wanted to visit, so they had to fix it fast. In their haste, they couldn't think of a better emergency reason to get the money from me. I seemed to be tough on the call, but deep inside I was sobbing at how my mom was using me for her personal benefit. They have no business trying to use emotional manipulation to coerce me into giving them money. I get it. They're broke. I sobbed for hours after hanging up the phone after hearing the truth. I can't even begin to fathom when I last sobbed so heavily. Perhaps while my father was dying. That day, I really longed for his presence. For all the people who claimed to care about me, I felt that no one loved me as he did. A voicemail from my mom arrived 2 days later, requesting that I deposit the remaining cash so that we may proceed with wedding preparations. Now that you know. I would have wanted to physically harm her if she weren't my mother. It repulsed me to no end. Her narcissism is perplexing. Her tone conveyed a complete lack of regret. Money was her only want. Just to be formal, they didn't even invite me to attend the wedding. And now, when the facts were revealed, I was so irritated that I accidentally blocked them both. I have also warned my husband that he would have to sleep on the chilly porch if he disobeys me this time, and I refuse to answer their calls. When I say this, I mean it seriously. According to my aunt, with whom I maintain continual contact, the wedding is next month. Although I refrained from disclosing specific financial information, I do know that my sister and mom are experiencing increasing difficulty in organizing the wedding of their dreams. Well done to them. Update 3. Up until the wedding day, my mom and sister kept calling and leaving voicemails begging for the money, but I refused to give an inch. My mom left me a disowning voicemail on the day of the wedding in which she told me I should never speak to her or see her again because she was embarrassed and ashamed of me. It was really discouraging to hear that. I sobbed uncontrollably in front of my spouse. For disrupting my sister's wedding, I'm well aware that some may accuse me of being wicked and stubborn. Even though she never gave any consideration to her false accusations, my mother likewise accused me of being conceited and haughty. She lied to me the whole time while I felt obligated to aid them. Even though they are like family to me, they saw me as a means to an end. A means to make money. My sister's wedding planner was a friend of my friend's husband, and I also received a call from him on the wedding day. She warned me that the wedding was in jeopardy if they didn't pay the remaining balance in installments. She answered $20,000 when I inquired how much they had paid. Just 20 grand will cover the costs of a respectable wedding, as I said before. Even though my sister had already ordered first-rate food and decorations, she still said yes. It cost roughly $20,000 for the ultimate site. Was I going to be there? She wanted to know. I had other commitments and couldn't make it, so I declined. My acquaintance was aware of my distant relationship with my mother and sister. Since I was the one who ruined my sister's wedding, I'll admit that I was secretly pouting. I considered sending the rest of the money to my friend and asking her to keep the wedding going as scheduled for a second. Why bother doing all that for someone if you're just going to be disowned in the end? That was my mother's final voicemail to me. Even if my acts were wrong, they were a response to their evil trigger. I took a break from my phone and went on a day trip with my kids to divert my attention. My friend contacted me again the next day, this time fuming at my sister for bringing her husband's reputation crashing down to earth during the wedding. Even though she had agreed to pay $10,000 extra, her mother and sister begged her husband to pay at least the absolute minimum for the wedding on the big day. Since the 20 grand he had set up in advance had almost paid for the location, he managed to arrange for respectable catering and decor. But the guests and the groom's family were quite critical of the wedding plans, and my sister put the blame squarely on the wedding planner. According to what she informed everyone, the planner has utterly ruined everything. According to my buddy, my sister's life was spared because my mom begged her husband not to ruin it by telling everyone the truth while he was so angry. He let the wedding go through because he was a decent man. He remained mute and accepted responsibility. Plus, the promised $10,000 has still not been paid. Hearing this about my family made me feel very ashamed. Nothing came out of my mouth. I only stood there. My buddy assured me that she was only venting her frustrations to me in a supportive manner and was in no way trying to hold me responsible. I felt terrible that my family had to go through that, but I was equally ashamed by how they had placed the whole burden on the wedding planner. My husband assured me that, now that I knew all of this, I shouldn't be concerned about them since they got what they deserved. They brought this upon themselves by attempting to fool everyone. It's for the best that I avoid them and their antics. Having escaped their deceit and manipulation, I now see my mother's disownment as a fortunate turn of events. The following story is up next. Tale number 2. My spouse has come clean about his feelings for my sister after years of denial. When he was intoxicated yesterday, my hubby told me he loves my sister. I can't tell if this is serious or if I'm simply intoxicated. There was a lot of drinking during yesterday's supper with my sister and her husband. We had sexual relations after my sister's husband and sister-in-law separated. We kept on sipping our wine while listening to music. I couldn't help but think that everything was perfect since neither of us was exhausted. A positive attitude and a smile graced my husband's face. As soon as he gets drunk, he acts just like that. Our conversation revolved around my sister and her spouse. He remarked, "I'm so in love with your sister," out of the blue. What did I say? He gushed. I would do anything to taste her lips. His sister's name was the object of his intense affection. Truly, she is a genius. Still grinning, he seemed really charming. I asked, how inebriated are you? I would say he spoke a lot. This struck me like a ton of bricks, even though I was also inebriated. He appeared completely absorbed in his own world, grinning broadly as if he were in another dimension entirely. I sat there, completely still. So I hit the hay. Everything he said came flooding back to me this morning, and the fact that I'm sober makes it all sink in. It has broken my heart, and I am terrified. He is behaving normally, but with a slight hangover, and hasn't said anything. Now I am at a loss as to what to do. His connection with my sister has always been one of mutual respect and friendship. Can I roll the dice with his inebriated remarks? Was he merely inebriated? Can I just sit here and wait for him to speak? Doubtful that he can recall? Does it matter that we had sex? I liked it and believed it was one of the finest sex experiences of my life, yet something was off. He never stopped telling her, I love you. You are brilliant. He was unique. He was also passionate, sensitive, and loving. My sister, who has always been reserved and unassuming, has reduced 25 kilograms in a year of exercise. Yesterday, she wore a figure-hugging red dress and wore red lipstick. We were all quite complimentary of her outfit. About it, she was ecstatic. This may or may not be important, but I can't remember why I added it. Do not hesitate to bring it up after he is no longer inebriated and able to think rationally. The ancient adage goes something like, drunk minds speak sober thoughts. It's true that drinking makes it hard to focus and make sound decisions, but I'm still not sure I believe it. On the other hand, I'm not sure how much faith I have in the power of booze to convince a spouse to admit his feelings for his sister. Ignoring his denials of the truth of those sentiments, do you believe you can overcome this? His denial is inevitable, in my opinion. The dynamic between my sister and my husband is unsustainable from a marital perspective. Personally, I would never feel safe having them in the same room again. To be really honest, I believe he was likely expressing his desire for Ob's sister at the time. Those two feelings tend to mix into one for a lot of folks when they're drunk and their inhibitions are down. Many people would often disguise their desires for another person or item as love in order to appease them. However, the Op should really talk things out with their partner. It may be really difficult for Op to proceed with the relationship from this point onwards, even with discussion, because no one can respond for him. From my experience, I can say that the Op may very well hold this event close to her heart, even if it is written off as desire. Couples counseling and individual therapy can help you and your partner move ahead in a healthy way if you both want to attempt to make this work. Sending best wishes to the Op and hoping for a better future for you. I can't believe this is befalling you. I once corrected my ex-boyfriend, saying, "That's my twin sister, not me," in response to her statement that she loved me. Oh, I see. I apologize for mixing up the names. He actually didn't. My sister captivated his heart. He dated me so he could see my sister. You should absolutely have an honest conversation with him about this. You wanted your sister. Thus, going out with you was the worst decision ever. We were reared in a traumatic environment and didn't have the finest relationships between us, as our parents regularly compared and pitted us against each other. So, it came as a surprise when she dated him after Ike. I thought the same thing. However, I concur that, in the majority of cases, that is the incorrect approach. It would be far more effective, for example, to make friends with their siblings rather than boning them. I suppose he wasn't thinking straight, though. It hurts to read this. That conversation must take place today. Is he pretending like it never happened? Do you believe that person can't recall uttering such words? Intoxicated language conveys serious ideas, I believe. When it came to her, have you ever witnessed anything that made you think twice? While you're facing each other, ask him directly. You may learn a lot from his reaction. My sister was always his favorite. He gets along well with everyone in my family and is friends with my brothers, but he has a special soft spot for my sister and is quite close with both her and her husband. For the most part, we do things together that involve more than just us. However, my sister has always been my best friend, so it would have been normal if he had simply said, "I love her." It could have been an intoxication-related thing if he actually liked her. Or at most, an innocent crush. However, he continued by making sure his sentiments were very clear. His statements were not careless inebriation but rather well-reasoned ideas that leaked out when he let his guard down. Drunk people stated some really stupid things. People usually don't do this unless there's a specific reason why they love the other person. Everything you need to know may be gleaned from his reaction. Therefore, I would suggest bringing it up suddenly. Hello. Update. This site has a 3-day updating policy. So, when I spoke to my spouse on Sunday, I didn't update. Furthermore, I am deeply conflicted. I had a conversation with my husband, and he mentioned that he didn't recall much from that evening, particularly after my sister and her husband departed and we persisted in imbibing. I relayed his words to him, and he appeared neither startled nor astonished. Rather, he claimed to have forgotten what he had said. Before we started drinking, I wanted to know if he felt it. My sister is so sweet and welcoming, he added, that he has loved her forever. Afterwards, he confessed that, in his inebriated state, he found her attractive and thought she looked stunning. He thinks it's funny that people are interested in the other sex. Since he comes from a long line of attractive people, he always felt she was stunning. However, once she lost weight, she gained confidence and appeared happier, so he was overjoyed for her. My sister wasn't married, and I wasn't his wife or anything. When I asked him if he could pick between us, he was astonished and said I was his mother, his children's mother, and that he loved me. I then asked him if he had just met us. He still claimed to love me. He expressed his distaste for hypothetical games, saying that people get too worked up and argue about insignificant matters. After dinner, he assured me that he loved me deeply and was happy, telling me not to overanalyze his words since he was too drunk to know who he was. In this scenario, I'm not sure I can keep you in mind. Your feedback has been reviewed. See a therapist on your own if you can. It would really bother me. To what extent did the prospect of continuing to have some contact with her, however restricted, factor into his choice to remain with you? The fact that he used your body to express his feelings for your sister while making love to her is something my mind will never be able to wrap around. I would always have those final 2 songs playing in my thoughts. My mind would never allow me to really immerse myself in the moment and experience the connection, even when I considered reaching a point where I attempted to share intimacy with him. What I would be doing is making comparisons. I would be completely absorbed in my thoughts, analyzing every move I made. Always feeling inadequate, I would be detached and self-conscious. Because of my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, my brain would always think it was a stage production. The two of us are really close. In fact, we live within a 2-minute walk of each other. You wouldn't believe I haven't considered that. The fact that he likely settled for becoming her friend-family hybrid is the next best thing. It's never in a bad way, but I can't stop thinking about how he talks about her and our interactions. Whenever they are talking about her, he feels a surge of joy. Does he feel the same way about me? I am uncertain. Myth or reality? Is everything happening before my eyes? Whatever you do, I guarantee you that this will never truly leave your mind. Straighten up and pay attention to your intuition. He does. Now he has admitted it on my behalf. For a while now, he has harbored affections for my sister. But he has assured me that he cherishes our relationship and our lives. My sister and I are going to start therapy, and he will no longer accompany me when I spend time with her. He confessed his love for her. According to him, it has come and gone throughout the years. He has never and will never want to do anything with them.